My brother gave his life hunting the enemy. His task is now mine. Speak your truth.
Hello, my name is Joss Corvus and I break down books, movies and TV shows. I do this to learn how they work. I also like to break down TV shows so we can have fun guessing what might happen next. And that's what we're going to do here. We're 4 episodes into Rings of Power and we have 4 left. Let's break down the story and have some fun predicting what might happen in the remainder of the season. So, Rings of Power. I have to say I'm enjoying the show on a whole. Mostly this is for the moments it invokes Middle-earth. I've come to accept Galadriel is more Éowyn than Blanchett, and I'm warming to her. The interaction between Elrond and Durin is super cozy. The show is created with a passion for the world and necessarily bridled by the needs of a broad audience. There are moments of incredible cinematography and some real and engaging characters. For all the positives, there are of course some negatives. None more egregious or more damaging to our perception of the show than the underlying lack of any dramatic impetus. Let me explain. There are 4 core narratives. The A story is the Southlander narrative, fronted by Arondir, Bronwyn and the plight of men in the face of the rising Orc insurgents. The B story is the coming together of Galadriel, Miriel and Halbrand as a force making its way towards the Southlands. Even then, Galadriel's goal is not so much to save the Southlanders, but to find and defeat Sauron. The C story is the currently unrelated thread involving elves and dwarves, happily setting up the Rings narrative for future seasons. The D story is the Harfoots and their mystery Meteor Man, who occupy another currently unconnected thread. The narrative driving the dramatic pace of the whole show is the A story, fronted by Arondir and the Southlanders. This story is the one hitting the dramatic marks through the first 4 episodes and therefore defining our expectation for the scope of the season. The problem is, there's no story goal for any of the Southlander characters beyond surviving. None of the characters here want anything. They're not searching for a way out or trying to gauge the Orc forces. They are simply waiting as we inevitably build to a Helm's Keep style of conflict. There's no reason the Southlanders can't have their own story goal, even if that goal is defeated. It would give the audience a reason to become involved and provide a sense of momentum or dramatic momentum. The only story goal in the entire show is owned by Galadriel. And what I mean by story goal is a goal that a character wants to achieve. It's not something they've been told to do, it's something that is internal to a character that they want to achieve. And the only goal is Galadriel's simple desire to track down and destroy Sauron. That's it. It started quite clearly with Galadriel's belief in Sauron's threat, having her jump ship. Then she's rescued with Halbrand, which should have ignited her drive, at the end of Act 1 to get on and complete this mission. However, the writers had other ideas. At the end of episode 3, we're in Numenor. Galadriel has given an impassioned speech to Halbrand about journeying together to the Southlands to recover his kingdom. And, I got excited imagining that this wonderful buddy narrative that might entail with this sort of footloose Halbrand and this pent-up, tight-lipped Galadriel. And our only concern was, that we didn't want them to kiss. We didn't want that sort of relationship. We wanted it to be like a buddy movie. But that was not to be, because in episode 4, that all got washed aside by leveraging pseudo-Galadriel, which is Queen Regent Miriel, into the story goal. Halbrand is now plot sidelined in jail, and it's becoming clear there's no grand character arc planned for him, which undermines any meaning his potential Aragorn or Witch King or Sauron arc might have delivered. Instead, it lines him up for occasional dialogue inside, like he did in episode 4, and plot twists. They may invoke Halbrand as any of the above characters, but it won't pack any emotional punch because they haven't built any relatable character narrative that would make that moment, any twist, a strong emotional moment for the audience. When I say Muriel is a pseudo Galadriel, I mean she has a demeanour and charisma you'd expect of the Galadriel we saw portrayed by Kate Blanchett. But casting Cynthia Ade Robinson to the role was possibly too much of an ask for the showrunners. I think everyone, the internet's gone a bit crazy over the Rings of Power anyway, and that's largely down to some mishandling by the marketing team. At this stage we want a Galadriel that feels like and looks like a Galadriel rather than, what we have. So instead they now have 2 female characters fulfilling the role of Galadriel, which is only going to further slow the narrative. So if that wasn't enough, the final scene of we've now spent 2 long episodes in Numenor treading water, and seems like at the end of episode 4 we're going to get going, except for the final scene says, right, we're going to set sail in 10 days, and you're thinking 10 days? Which means of course that we're going to be stuck in Numenor for the entirety of episode 5. I guess it's going to be training montages. From the shots I've seen, it looks like there's going to be some anti-elf politics, and as they build up this B-story hodgepodge fellowship, that's what they're doing. So they're fleshing that out and packing it onto boats. They're not going to set off on their mission any earlier than at the end of episode 5. You can't imagine that. So that's 3 episodes since Galadriel washed up in Numenor, with the simple premise of finding a boat and getting to mainland Middle-earth. If the showrunners had given any of the 3 other narratives character-based story goals, this extended time in Numenor would not have seemed like such a momentum killer. The audiences are savvy. They know the middle of the story, episode 4 and 5 of 8, should be significant. They should have some sense of closing in of the threat, or promise of the story goal being within reach. That's what the middle of the story is, even if it's illusionary. So this lack of any dramatic narrative is why switching to the C story of elves and dwarves, or the Harfoots D story, often feels like a drag. These stories don't have any character goals, so we don't have a sense of the story moving forward, which means any time we're here the story isn't going anywhere, we get impatient. Even if the visuals are gorgeous, even if Meteor Man is intriguing, even if Elrond and Durin offer strong character interactions, where we're sitting there thinking, well, where's this all going? Because none of these characters want anything. So predicting the future, this is one of my favourite things to do. And for your entertainment, I've trawled through all the Rings of Power trailers and collected every screen grab I can find of any moment we haven't seen so far in the first 4 episodes. So what we're going to do now is go through these images, through each one of the narratives, and ponder what they mean for these narratives going forward, considering that we have just got 4 episodes left. So if you're not wanting me to second guess what will happen in the next 4 episodes, this is the time to leave. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. I really hope you'll take the time to click like on the way out, which would help me immensely. But if you're still here, okay, let's get going. And let's start with Galadriel's B story. We already know the Numenor fleet isn't going anywhere fast, because we got told that at the end of episode 4, which is why we have some shots of Galadriel trading soldiers and swordplay. We can only hope these scenes are handled well. I'm slowly warming to Galadriel, but that goodwill might be undone if she's too much of a smartass with these rookies. I suspect there's going to be a lot of anti-elf bias running through this episode, which will result in Galadriel standing up for herself and smacking rookie butt with wooden swords. But I hope she just isn't the imperious bitch that she sometimes comes across as. We also see this image here of the heated debate Galadriel seems to have with Halbrand, and it looks like he's in a smithy, and we know that that's something that he believes he's good at. And I'm starting to wonder whether the snazzy new armour Galadriel has when she gets on the boat, seemingly to leave Numenor, was made by Halbrand, which could potentially be very exciting when you consider the devastation moment we'll get to later, where it seems to protect her or save her from some massive force. Either that or it would have to be Numenorian, but it'd be nice if Halbrand had created that armour. We'll see. And we've got this image here of Pharason building anti-elf bias and doing political shenanigans. I suspect what will happen at the end of the episode, or towards the end of the episode, there will be this moment in the Numenorian harbour, which will be some sort of insurgents or anti-elf event, I guess. Someone trying to kill Galadriel, I'm imagining. Which then led me to think that this epic shot of Galadriel might actually have been on the boat, and that she might have used some magical power to survive the blast, because we haven't seen her do anything magical yet other than whispering a spell to the little paper boat at the very beginning of the first episode. But other than that, we've seen no magic at all. But I've now realised this image is from much later in the series, actually in the Southlands. And we can see in this other related image, there's trees and a brick wall, which give away the fact that she had not actually on a boat. But I was beginning to think, wow, wouldn't it be cool if the boat blew up and she was sort of left crouched on the deck at the end. But assuming the boat explodes in the days or the moment before they leave, an established character is going to have to die to make this moment relatable for the audience. I'd be surprised if they killed off Muriel, although she seems like a good candidate because she is pseudo Galadriel. But I've not seen any images of her in the Southlands. I've seen this one shot of her with this really weird helmet, but I'm not sure where that came from, whether that's part of the pageantry of Numenor. But we'll see. Yeah, if you look at some of the shots we're coming up to, there's no picture of her charging into battle. Probably the most likely victim on the boat is Elendil, the father of Isildur and the girl architect, which would be a shame, but it would give Isildur some stakes in the journey and make their journey relatable for the audience, because we care about Elendil, and if he dies, not only does that give us some emotional stakes into Isildur and his journey, but it also gives some emotional stakes in this Numenorian fellowship heading to the Southlands as well. Now then, we've got these images, several in fact, of Galadriel and Halbrand galloping into battle. Given they set sail at the end of episode 5, it's unlikely they're going to be will have traversed Middle Earth to the Southlands much before episode 7. So we got some time coming ahead, and I think there's not going to be these lengthy episodes of them traversing the Southlands. I think and doing different battles with different orcs. I think what it looks like we're going to do is we're going to get 1 or 2 big battles at the end of the season, and that'll be our lot. So it looks unlikely that we'll get them charging into battle much before episode 7. I would be very surprised that if they did, it would be at the very end of episode 6. Especially when you consider that this shot here is meant to invoke Gandalf's last minute arrival at the Battle of Helm's Deep, and given that we already look like they're already creating a correlation to Helm's Deep in the people under siege in the Watchtower. You can see from this image here that the attack and kill orcs in a village, or one of the villages. We don't know where. How that's going to play out, I've got no idea. These devastation images are the most interesting to fathom for me. This looks like a moment of defeat that Galadriel has survived. Hopefully it will give us some insight into some of her magical powers, or some magic of some kind. It would be so cool if she's protected by the armor, and that was made by Halbrand. That would spark some interesting conversations. This level of devastation is likely a darkest hour moment in episode 7, as Sauron's forces get the upper hand, or it might be part of a climatic battle in episode 8, what would be like the crisis within the climactic fight scenes, which sees an apparent defeat or a crisis, and then Galadriel leveling up to defeat the big baddie. To be honest, it looks more like the total defeat before Act 3. The first appearance of a big baddie. I've got my suspicions, but it looks like an initial defeat that we're going to have to then collect ourselves from. It's not something Adar has done. I don't think it's going to be the sword that we've got the helm for. I think this is going to be a big baddie, a leveled up baddie. And of course, the question is, what could cause that sort of devastation? A dragon could cause that sort of devastation, but they're very overexposed right now and have also been in Middle-earth within The Hobbit. So, as we'll see with the Elrond and Durin images, it looks like Sauron, or an emissary of Sauron, is ready to summon a Balrog. Don't Balrogs only exist in caves? According to Nerd of the Rings, they actually travel over land as well. They don't seem to fly, but they do travel. And wouldn't that fit nicely with the narrative? We have seen that there has been an image of a Balrog doing Balrog things. Wouldn't it be great if it was actually invoked by Adar and used by Sauron to try and take out Galadriel? So moving on to the Southlanders A story, this has run out of momentum. The Helm's Deep style siege and battle look preordained. It looks like Galadriel will battle orcs in a village setting. We have orcs attacking the watchtower, which will probably give us 2 battles or 1 long battle. If it's 1 long battle, we'll likely be bridging episodes 7 and 8. Will the orcs attack the watchtower in episode 5? It does not seem likely. Probably they'll just lay siege and build the expectation of the threat. And maybe Arondir will be doing Arondir things, as we see in these images here. The world building of the Southlanders has not given us anywhere they might escape to. They could possibly escape to the tunnels the orcs have built, but seems unlikely. Otherwise, all the world building they've created, we've seen already. So they maybe would find a way into mines. I don't know. That would be possible. You're not going to get the orcs attack the watchtower until you at least feel like Galadriel would be able to show up and do battle. And as we've seen, she isn't really going to be doing that until the very earliest, until the end of episode 6 and more than likely episode 7. So now we're growing to a realization we're not likely to see more than staging and strutting in the Southlanders A story in episode 5. We're going to see some Numenor politic, we're going to see some dwarves and elves, and a dose of Harfoots, and that's probably about it. I've got a horrible suspicion much of episode 5 and a good chunk of 6 is going to be Harfoot centric. If we're to believe this grumpy old barkeeper, Meaty Man is actually Sauron himself. That prediction doesn't work really with Harfoot lore. If they transported Sauron incognito across Middle-earth, it would be a tale we'd hear about in the Fellowship, but we don't. Plus the showrunners haven't really demonstrated that level of duplicity yet. Now, if they kill Muriel in the harbour explosion, then that would be that level of duplicity. But in reality, within the realm of a family show, Meaty Man is more likely to be a wizard. Although they are obscuring his identity for a reason. So long now is actually getting a bit laborious. This is an adventure story, not a murder mystery. It looks like episode 5 might be when he does at least do something wizardry. So we close these images. We get this image of a meal. I guess it's celebrating their allegiance, or the allegiance between elves and dwarves. And then this image, I suspect, is from the closing scenes of episode 8, which I think is the mithril door that we see Gandalf trying to open in the Fellowship. I can only believe it's from episode 8 because in episode 4 they haven't really mined that much mithril enough to build the door with it. So I can only imagine this is a later scene, probably one of the last scenes. The interesting images are these characters, though. They haven't been set up, so if they just rock up in episode 5 without some plausible explanation, it'll be very annoying. We're beyond setup now. We're only interested in closure, so introducing new stuff just frustrates us even more. It does look like this character is invoking something, which I suspect will be a Balrog or a dragon. I suspect it will be a Balrog, given that we've seen a Balrog in some of the promo material. It'll be very interesting if a Balrog manages to bridge the elves and dwarves, Southlanders and Galadriel narratives and gets out into the big wide world. Anyway, a lot of fun to be had with this season of Rings, even if the story isn't really going anywhere fast right now. It'll soon have to. If it finishes on a high, we'll quickly forgive the grime that came before. I hope you have found this video informative and at least a little bit entertaining. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you could, I'd appreciate a like. It's the only way YouTube will ever know I'm here. I'm going to be doing updates per episode of the last 4 episodes, as well, 1 per week on each episode to see where these predictions might be going and to change them. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.